Good morning, everybody. It is 6:42 a.m. Mr. G, hardest working man in the business right now. All right, so let's finally do this. Let's take a video on factoring trinomials of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is greater than 1. So here, this will be the AC method. Okay, every high school in the country uses this method, and we will practice this right now. So a very long time ago, when life was very nice, you had trinomials that looked like this. Let's say you had some x squared plus 7x plus 12, and you had to make these. You had to factor this into two binomials if you can. And in this case, let's see. What is the rhythm? What two numbers, when you multiply them, give you 12, but when you add them, give you 7? Do two numbers exist? And if you want to think about it for a little while, pause the video. But yes, they do. It should be 4 and 3, right? Because 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 plus 3 is 7. And then you're all happy, and you're like, oh, this is so easy. I can just do this all day. Like, let's say if you had, for example, x squared plus 12x plus 35, right? How can you factor this into two binomials? Pause the video if you want, take a quick second, and what two numbers, when you multiply them, give you 35, and when you add them, give you 12, right? So let's say you pause the video, 3, 2, 1. Remember, it's always an x and an x here. It should be 7 and 5, right? Because 7 times 5 is 35, and 7 plus 5 is 12. And then you're all happy, you're like, yes, this is very easy to do, I could do this. But one thing that you have to notice that is you're only allowed to say this rhythm when this leading coefficient, right? You remember that fancy word, leading coefficient? It is the coefficient of the term with the highest degree. 2 is the highest degree here. You're only allowed to say that when that leading coefficient is 1, when a is equal to 1. That is the only time you're allowed to say that. But like, let's say if you have, for example, let's see, what's the first example we're going to use? Oh, we're going to use this one. For example, if you have 2t squared plus 5t minus 12, right? Are you allowed to say what two numbers, when I multiply them, give me negative 12, but when I add, give me 5? You cannot, because there's a 2 here. You don't have just that x squared. So here we have to use this AC method, okay? There's a way to actually solve this so you can get it into two binomials, right? So that's what we'll do. Let's do that first example, right? Let's do it. So we'll do 3 examples, and you'll see all the steps that are needed, okay? So step number 1, I'll write it over here, step 1, okay? You're going to multiply A to C, okay? And give me a second, let me write this down. So remember, if you have any quadratic expression, ax squared plus bx plus c, remember, this is any quadratic expression. And that's what we're doing, you see? This is in the form of this. And so is this one that we're gonna do. This is in this form, okay? And we just have to look at it. The a here is a coefficient of that x squared, of whatever variable that is. So what is our a here? A is equal to 2. What is c equal to? And do not say 12. It is negative 12, okay? You have to take into consideration that minus over there. So a is equal to 2 and c is equal to negative 12. So what does step 1 tell us to do? Multiply a to c. You're multiplying that 2 to the negative 12. So literally all you do is 2 times negative 12, and you get negative 24, okay? Now, step 2. With that negative 24, with the negative 24, what two numbers, when you multiply them, give you negative 24, but when you add them, give you, in this case, you see we want two numbers, when we multiply them give us negative 24, but when you add them, they're going to give us that b. In this case it's positive 5. So we get a positive 5. Okay, that's how you read it, positive 5. So what two numbers when you multiply them give you negative 24, and when you add them give you 5. So let's see. If we have negative 24, right, what are all the multiples of negative 24? You got to go through all of them and see which combination when you add them gives you 5. So let's see, how can you get negative 24? You can do, let's see. You could do 1 times negative 24. You could do negative 1 times 24. You can do 6 times negative 4, or negative 6 times 4. I can do 8 times negative 3. I could do negative 3 times 8. I could do negative 2 times 12, or 2 times negative 12, right? If you multiply any one of these combinations, 1 times negative 24 is negative 24. Negative 1 times 24 is negative 24. All of these work. But remember, we want to find the combination that when we add them, we get what? Oh no, that's bad. Okay. Oh no, that's too much. We want to find the combination that gives us positive 5. So let's see. Here we're going to write a column for sum. We're going to see what the sum is. And here, sometimes I know you get, sometimes you get a little distraught with adding and subtracting negative numbers, but you have to get used to it. So here, what is 1 plus negative 24? It's a negative 23. What is negative 1 plus 24? It's 23. Remember, that magic number we want is positive 5. So far, this doesn't give it to us. 6 plus negative 4 is 2. Negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. So that still doesn't work. 8 plus a negative 3, that's 5. There we go. This is the one that works. But just, let's check the others, all right? Negative 3, oh no, that'll be the same. So it should be negative 8 over here. So 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. Hold on. Oh God, Mr. G is losing his voice. Okay. So negative 2 plus 12, that's 10. And 2 plus negative 12 is negative 10. Okay. So none of these, the only combination that works is this 8 and negative 3. Okay. So what are we going to do with that 8 and negative 3? So step 3, we're going to write it here. Take, so let's see, let's put it in the orange. We're using that 8 and negative 3, right? Take the 8 and negative 3. Take the 8 and negative 3, and let's see, how can I see this? Take the 8 and negative 3 and make it positive 8x. I'm sorry, in this case, not 8x, our variable is t. So we're going to make it into 8t, a plus 8t, and a minus 3t. Okay? We're just going to take that 8 and use the variable that we have and this. So what we're going to do is, let's put the original, right? We had 2t squared plus 5t minus 12. What we're going to do is, we're going to break that 5t to, literally break. We're going to break that 5t to an 8t and a minus 3t. Okay? So this expression becomes 2t squared, that stays the same, and this 5t, that positive 5t, you're going to substitute it with this. So it's going to be plus 8t minus 3t, right? And then that stays the same, that minus 12. Now notice, is positive 8t minus 3t equal to 5t? Is this and this, are these two expressions the same? Absolutely. You're not changing the value of anything. You're just changing the way it looks. Now, what was the reasoning behind that? Why did we want to choose 8t and minus 3t? This will give us the opportunity to do the last step, which is step 4 is factor by grouping. Okay? Factor by grouping. Now, if you feel like you're still not good with this concept of factor by grouping, look at lesson number 4. Pause the video right now and do lesson number 4, okay? Because you need to be solid with this concept to actually solve this, because when we do the factor by grouping, okay, so let's do that right now. If we're to do factor by grouping, what's the first move? You take the first two terms, parentheses, 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 okay? That's move number 1. Move number 2, what do? You have to find the GCF of this group, of these two terms, and the GCF of this group, of these two terms. So what is the GCF of 2t squared and 8t? Well, let's see. What's the GCF of 2 and 8? That'll be 2. What's the GCF of t squared and t? It's just t. Remember, the smallest exponent, so just t. Now, what do you do when you get... Now, if you feel like this is too fast, go back and practice the video, okay? Because you have to start getting good at finding the GCF, right? That GCF. And then once you take that GCF, what do you have to do with it? You have to divide the GCF by this and the GCF by that, right? There is a, what are you doing with each one? Remember, you're dividing this by 2t, and then you're dividing this by 2t, okay? And then what happens? You're doing parentheses, 2t squared divided by 2t. Remember, 2 divided by 2 just cancels. T squared divided by t is just t. And then 8 divided by 2 is, remember there's a positive here, so that's positive 4. And t divided by t just cancels. And you have this, okay? And now what about this move over here? Remember, if you have a t plus 4 over here, what do you want over here? You want a t plus 4, so you can group them. So here you have minus 3t minus 12. So don't factor out, the GCF is 3, right? But don't factor out a 3. Factor out a negative 3, okay? Factor out a negative 3. And that becomes, if you factor out negative 3, it becomes t plus 4, all right? And notice that these two are the same. Because, for example, I'll show you a little extra step over here just for your own sanity. If you have minus 3t minus 12, right? Let's say if you factored out a 3. You said, Mr. G, the GCF is 3. Okay, let's do that. What happens if you take out 3? Negative 3t divided by 3 is negative t, and negative 12 divided by 3 is minus 4. And you're 100% correct. Mathematically, you're correct. But remember, does this help us? Because you have a negative t minus 4. What did we have here? We had a t plus 4. These two are not the same, okay? And so that won't help us. But if you take out a minus 3, it will be the same. And once these two are the same, what can we do? We can do that factor by grouping. And then we have t plus 4, and remember this 2t minus 3. And that's it. We're done. We took this trinomial and we made it equal to 2 binomials. And how would you check to make sure you're right? Okay, we could do a step 5. Check. How would you check to see if these 2 binomials, when you multiply them, give you this? You just multiply them. Let's say if you have 2t minus 3 and t plus 4, right? You just multiply them. So 2t times t is 2t squared. 2t times 4 is plus 8t. Remember, we're using FOIL. Minus 3 times t is minus 3t. And minus 3 times 4 is minus 12. You combine them together, 2t squared is here. Positive 8t minus 3t is positive 5t minus 12. And this, oh god, you can't even see it, my bad. This is equal to that. So we did it. We did it. Happy face. We did it. Okay. What I want you to do is, using these steps that we did step by step, try and do this one. try and do this example over here. 5y squared minus 22y plus 8 and 11a squared minus 54a minus 5. Okay? Try and use these two examples. Follow the same steps. Remember, step 1, what are you going to do? You multiply a to c. A to c. Then step 2, follow the same routine. So I'll pause the video right now and try and do it by yourself. And what I'll do is I'll actually do this problem with you as well. Okay? So pause the video, try and do these two. And let's say if you get stuck and you want to see the solution, let's work on it together. Okay? So because there's a lot of stuff over here, I'll just write the question over here. So let's say if you have 5y squared minus 22y plus 8. Okay, over here. And what I'll do is I'm not gonna write out the steps. Just try and follow the same steps that are here. Okay. So 5y squared minus 22y plus 8. What's the first move? 5 times 8, right? 5 times a positive 8, you get 40. Now, you have your 40. What do you ask yourself? What two numbers, when you multiply them, give you positive 40, but when you add them, give you negative 22? So let's find out. How can you get positive 40? Well, you could get 1 times 40, right? Negative 1 times negative 40. Okay, remember, don't forget that. After 1, let's see, that's 2. 2 times 20, and 2 times, negative 2 times negative 20. Anything else? 4 times 10, and negative 4 times negative 10. Right? And also 5 times 8, and negative 5 times negative 8. These all work, okay? But now we want to find the combination, the sum, that gives us what? That gives us negative 22. And just by looking at it, you have to get used to just looking at it. Like, how do you think you're going to get a negative 22 just by looking at it? If you had to take a guess, which one do you think it will be? Okay? It should be these two. Right? You should get a ding, ding, ding. I see negative 2, negative 20. That's very close to negative 22. And if you add negative 20 plus negative 22, you do get minus 22. And there you go. Okay? So once you have this, what do? What did the step 3 tell us to do? It said take the 8, right? Here we took that 8. Here we're going to take that negative 2. Here, let me do a little this. You're going to take the negative 2, right? So you're going to take the negative 2, you're going to take the negative 20, and you're going to make it, you see here it was 8t minus 3t, because we had a t over here, we had a t over there. You're going to use a minus 2t and a minus 22t, right? And that is equal to what? That is equal to that middle term. It's equal to minus 20. Oh, whoops, we're not using t, we're using y. Whoops, sorry. Minus 2y minus 22y. That is equal to, 20. Minus 2y and minus 20y. That's equal to the minus 22y. So remember, you're going to break this minus 22y to minus 2y and minus 20y. And now what do you get? Remember, this stays the same. You have 5y squared minus 2y minus 20y and plus 8. Okay. Now you have what? Now what do? Factor, what's step 4? Factor by grouping. So let's say, real quick. You see how we broke this one to minus 2y and minus 20y? Will it make a difference if we use 5y squared minus 20y minus 2y plus 8? Like, instead of having it like this, right? Will it make a difference? Pause the video and think about it. Mr. G, why is it like this? Why can't it be like that? Will it make a difference? You know what? What we'll do is we'll solve both of them. All right? So let's try and do this one. What's the first move? You factor by grouping. So you parentheses, 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 parentheses. Yeah? So what is the GCF of 5 and 2? is 1. So you don't take anything out. The GCF of y squared and y is just y. And if you were to factor out y, you get 5y minus 2. Okay? Now over here, if you have a 5y minus 2, you want to get a 5y minus 2 over here. And the GCF of 20 and 8 is 4, but you don't want to take out positive 4. The same reason over here, right? You don't want to take out a positive 4. In this case, you want to take out a negative 4. Because if you take out negative 4, negative 20 divided by negative 4 is 5, and the y is there. And 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. And then voila, they're the same. And you could do your factor by grouping. So you have y minus 4 and 5y minus 2. Okay, and that's it. You're done. If you want, step 5, check it. Check. And when you're making the project, definitely check it. All right. But let's just check over here. Remember, we got to get the same thing somehow. Let's see what happens. What do we do? First move. Parentheses, 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 parentheses. And what's the GCF of 5 and 20? It's 5. GCF of y squared and y is y. And if I were to divide this, I get y minus 4. Okay? And what's the GCF of this guy? Remember, if you have a y minus 4 here, you're going to want a y minus 4 over here. So the GCF of 2 and 8 is 2, but don't take out the 2. Take out a negative 2. So it's going to be minus 2, and then that becomes y minus 4. Right? And then look, we do 5y minus 2 over here, and you do y minus 4 over here. And then voila, you're done. And look, this is equal to this. They're just switched. And notice that 5y minus 2 is in these parentheses, and y minus 4 are in these parentheses. Alright, so hopefully this helped. What I want you to do is, if you want, why don't you practice doing this, well actually this one's a little more complicated. Try and do this question here, this question here, and this question here. Alright, and when you're done with them, show them to me and I'll double check. Alright, hopefully this video helped. Yeah, okay, I'll see you.